forever, again and again. So today's training is a follow-up for 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago I did a training that was basically Digital Marketing 101. I went over really general concepts, why strategy is kind of important, and just a really high-level survey of what I'm going to talk about in the next few sessions. This one's Digital Marketing 201, and you can kind of see how it fits in. This is the one where this is a kind of painful one where we have to go through everything. There's some repetition of last time, but I also have to go through basically every detail of every channel today so that you have the high-level survey and can, this is my new generic disclaimer, so that you have an idea of all the channels so that next time when we get together, you kind of have all that filed away and strategic discussions make a lot more sense. I'm not going to talk about best practices on any of the channels. I'm going to talk about a couple of gotchas. I'm going to talk about generally the roles that each channel can play. What I'm trying to do is get you enough information that you can make smart decisions about when to use them. More when than how, because the how is something we'll do as separate trainings. I can't teach you how to do PPC in one 15-minute session, just as an example. And you'll see stuff like this. So I'm going to talk about, what a particular channel does. I'm going to talk about when you should do it, how it should work. But just remember that the basic tenets of what we're doing here, what we're discussing, is you want to be significant. You want to be significant for the weird, and you do it by being useful and consistent. Okay, and that's from the last session. If you haven't seen that session, it is on video on VSAR. So here we go. First thing, just a quick refresher of last time. Digital is not a series of tricks. It's not something with shortcuts. It's not, buying links. It is about the weird, useful, and significant. It is about the entire marketing stack. And strategy is really cool, but the details, all the things that go into the stack, are pretty important too. And, I don't know if you noticed, but the nozzle's gone here because somebody drove away with it attached to their car. But, in digital, channels are kind of the first layer. If someone calls us, they're going to ask for work on a channel first. And it's up to us to put that in context. Even if all we do is work on those channels ever, we have to be able to say to them, we're doing SEO, but there's these other things you need to look at. Or we're doing SEO, and this aspect of infrastructure or paid or social has a big impact on SEO. And then ideally, we have clients who come to us and say, hey, we want you to pull it all together for us. So channels matter a lot. They're the things that actually deliver stuff to your site, to your social media account, whatever. And if I was going to break them down, paid, earned, and owned, this is kind of where they sit in the customer story, in the customer kind of order of operations. Owned is towards the end of the process. Earned is much more towards the beginning. Paid is sort of right in the middle. And if you're going to look at it for cost versus complexity, impression-based is the most expensive and not often that complex. SEO is sort of middle-of-the-road cost, but very complex. Paid social, right? A lot less expensive, but also very complicated. Owned content, you can see in all the other ones here. If you're looking at time to payoff, like how quickly each of these things pay off, you can kind of see here that generally the things that pay off faster have less staying power. So paid search, for example, pays off really fast, but when you turn it off, it's gone. It doesn't come back. Same thing with pay per impression. On the other hand, SEO takes a really long time to catch on, but when you stop doing SEO, you have a certain amount of time, usually a long time, where things just kind of stick around. Expertise versus clusterfuck potential. Very important measure to keep in mind at all times. Owned content doesn't require that much expertise. Very low possibility that you're going to completely kill yourself, because worst case, you can take it down, right? Because you're in control of it. PPC definitely requires the most expertise and definitely can cause the most damage. If you're thinking about budget, at least. Organic social, only slightly behind on expertise, in my opinion, and actually, as far as hard expertise, knowing the actual mechanics of the different networks, but certainly has very, very high potential to just completely destroy you if you're not careful. SEO, yeah, there's a pretty high potential to get penalized, but that's really the only really bad thing that can happen. That's irreversible. It does require quite a lot of expertise, but if you're just looking at SEO and you're not looking at all the other aspects of the stack that involve it, it's not quite as difficult, because in the end, if you can just convince people, a lot of SEO is about just doing things right. It's hard to do, to convince people, but it's true. So the paid channel. Paid is really good for growing significance in a hurry, okay? It's very good at targeting the weird, because you can pick your phrases, you can pick your audience, whatever. It can cause extreme budget loss. It can cause total addiction, dependency, because people just start blowing money on it and then they're afraid to turn it off. And it can cause a huge lack of consistency in the sense that I described consistency last time, where consistency is actually having a user experience that remains the same level of quality, same kind of point of reference. Because what a lot of people do is they buy PPC ads for keywords that don't necessarily apply directly to them, or keywords that don't match up adequately with the pages they're sending them to, and you can really break up consistency that way. It's one of the most direct ways to break it up. Very general best practices, and I'm not going to get much more specific than this. Always start specifically. Never let a company like Google, optimize your spend, because they're optimizing it for themselves, not for you. Test the heck out of everything because you can, and measure results because you can. Some quick facts about it. If you take a look at Bing, for example, it's those little ads on the right-hand side, right? AdWords, it shows up at the top and on the right-hand side. Yes, there are hander pants. I'm sorry?
I saw somebody wearing them yesterday on one end. They were on bus.
I'd like to own a pair. I don't think I'd wear them. But yeah, just saying. And then you can have ads showing up both at the top and on the right. And it can be 1 at the top, 2 at the top, 3 at the top, whatever. If you look at the classic pay-per-click advertising campaign, it's structured like this. You have campaigns. Then the campaigns are divided up into ad groups. The ad groups have many ads, and each ad has many keywords. There are other ways to do it, but that's a pretty typical way to structure it. Pay-per-click is an auction, right? You bid for a position per keyword. So you go in and you say, I want to be number 1 for this phrase. I'm going to pay $3.70, and boom, you're number 1. But it's also not an auction. Google has this thing, and Bing has something like it, called Quality Score, where it'll actually look at ads and look at the click-through and look at the relevance of the page to which you're pointing the ad, and they'll say, okay, you know what? You have a lower quality score because you're not getting as high a click-through rate, or the page you're pointing at doesn't seem relevant, or whatever else. So you can end up bidding for number 1 spot and end up in the number 2 spot, or the number 3 spot, or the number 12 spot. It's definitely, significance is a huge factor. So is consistency. Because, things like click-through, bounce back, the relevance of the page, the quality of the page, those all matter a lot. If you have a 10 out of 10 quality score, it equates to a 50% discount on your per-click cost. If you have a 1 out of 10, it quadruples the cost of your bids. So that's something for clients to kind of keep in mind, and us. And even better, Google does not provide campaign-wide quality scores. You can get them on, I believe, on ads and on keywords, but definitely on keywords. You cannot get them on campaigns, which is a pain, but it means you have to be very careful to split high and low performers into different campaigns if at all humanly possible. You can use PPC to kind of control real estate on the page, right? That's one of the uses. you can buy ads just to occupy a part of the page and either make sure that you're the strongest brand on the page or that you're controlling kind of the message on a particular page. It gets subtle. It's not just about generating those clicks. The problem is if you use it for real estate control, it ends up costing you a lot because your quality score probably goes down. The other thing is clients tend to worry a lot about cannibalization. They say, well, if we have an organic result right here and a paid result right next to it, we're ending up paying for clicks because people aren't clicking the organic result. I have never seen that proven. What I have seen proven many times is that if you have an organic listing and a paid ad right next to each other, people are more likely to click on both. So having them both there is really, really good. Having just one or the other, sure, but turning off paid because you got the organic ranking doesn't make any sense at all, particularly if it's your brand, right? Because then someone could buy the top position for your company and they control who goes where. Another form of pay-per-click is product listing ads. I'm not going to go into this in a lot of detail because I don't know enough about it. Elizabeth and her team know a lot about product listing ads. Basically, they are this additional chunk of real estate on the page now that shows products with pricing and lets people browse different prices from different sites and stores without leaving Google. And they're enormous revenue drivers. They've worked really, really well. They used to be free and they didn't work so well. Now they're pay-per-click and miraculously they're working better. And they're there for everything. I mean, I just did a search for roofing materials basically and got this. So you can buy asphalt bitumen on Google. It links to your paid pay-per-click account. And the one thing I'll point out is you want to put promotions in there because it shows promotions. If you look at this diagram, you'll see it save on factory direct prices. Shows up there, right? That's because they put in a promo. If you put in the promo, it shows up. If you don't put anything in, there's just nothing there. So what's the good about paid search? Huge reach, right? Because you can buy across the entire Google and Bing ad networks and third-party and third tier and second tier pay-per-click sites. It's super measurable, really fast results. It's extremely clear, right? You buy clicks and you get a return or you don't. The bad, if you buy too broadly, you're going to get low quality scores and you're going to get some really weird results. I buy something, I want to buy carbon monoxide for some reason, and Amazon is advertising there for something, for detectors, but it has nothing to do with me wanting to buy carbon monoxide. This is my favorite. I type in internet misspellings and CenturyLink shows up number one, which is kind of funny, but that's not what they meant to have happen. It used to be that if you typed in things like buy atomic bomb or buy a wife, it would say buy atomic bomb at Target, buy a wife at Target, buy a child at Target, all these great ones. eBay was everywhere too because they were just bidding on anything with the word buy in it. It's a little too broad. Low consistency, low significance means a low quality score, which means your bids go way up. Do not ever just take and import and click on Google's campaign recommendations or Bing's, because they'll give you this little thing that shows up saying, hey, we have recommendations for your campaign because you're missing 75% of the clicks you could get. What they really mean is you could be paying us 75% more than you're paying us right now. We don't give a flying insert curse word of your choice whether you actually get anything from it. And we've had lots of clients who call us and say, Google just called me and said I could be getting this many more clicks and blah, blah, blah. And by the time we're done looking at the words, we're just like, yeah, you could get more clicks. Those aren't going to do anything for you. So anytime the ad network you're giving money to comes back with advice on how to buy advertising, there's a tiny conflict of interest. Do not listen to them, okay? You want to look at their stuff and give a really critical eye to it, go for it. But never, ever just take their recommendations at face value. You can burn more budget in a shorter time than a military contractor. There's no question. It is very possible. I have seen clients spend $80,000 in a single day. I am not kidding, in one day. And it all started with something like, I'll just take this over, or some phrase like that. Or do you mind if I? And then they go in and tweak something. Things to look out for. Search network with display select. I love display select. I don't know what it selects, but it can really spend a lot of money in a short time. This again is that recommendation. You may be losing clicks due to a limited budget, which is them saying, yeah, I wish you wouldn't limit your budget so much because we would like to have more of it. And then your client comes to you and is very unhappy because you just spent tons of money, even though they just told you to go listen to Google. It doesn't matter, right? They want to see their conversions. Very quick best practices. Measure, pay attention to the ad text, watch the different networks you're buying on, make sure they're not sneaking your ads into really low conversion networks. Always split good from bad, always split broad from specific, and deep link. Don't just point all your ads at a homepage. If you ever work with a client, no matter what your position is here at Portent, if you look at a client's PPC ads and they all point at the homepage, that is the first thing you should tell them. I don't care if we're doing SEO, I don't care if we're doing design, you should tell them right away, this is a bad idea. And then if they come back and say, well, we hired this PPC firm, that's when you say, please fire them and we will do it for you instead. So when should you use PPC? To protect your brand, absolutely. There was a really famous example 2 years ago. I think it was Chevrolet did a series of ads during the Super Bowl talking about one of their cars and said, go to Google and type in Chevy and then click on the first result. Well, Mazda went in and bought the number one result for Chevy because Chevy hadn't done it. And they started sending people to another page that they had thrown up very quickly after they saw the ad saying something like, this is better than Chevy's car. It was hilarious. It was hilarious. Chevy could have spent 50 cents a click, maybe a dime a click, because of course the quality score is very high when you buy your own brand, unless you buy my name, by the way. I tried to buy my name once. It was like $15 a click, and they rejected my attempt to buy my own name. I don't know why, but use it to answer a very specific question, right? How do I fix a flat tire? And you'll see Goodyear shows up there. That's good for Goodyear. Buy roofing adhesive. You can target very high intent visitors. The word buy is in there. That means they're looking right now. You can test different topics and phrases before you spend a ton of time on organic SEO or rebuilding pages on your site or something else. You can fill gaps in your SEO, right? If there's words you don't rank for, you can buy some advertising for them instead. You can promote something specific. It's very good for that. And you can use it to retain audience after you've established significance. So if someone comes to your site because of a particular article, and that you think that may mean they're interested in your product, you bidding on a keyword related to that product means they'll see you again, even if they don't click. And that reinforces the fact that you exist and you're important. Generally, you can use PPC at this end of the spectrum, right? So very late stage customers, people who are either considering whether they're going to buy or not, or they're ready to buy now, or, they're buying right now. They're just good to go. There is no argument. Do not use pay-per-click because you want to be number one. I've seen a lot of ego-driven PPC campaigns. They rarely work very well. To just get your name out there. Pay-per-click is not a branding tool. It's not a great branding tool. I should rephrase that. If you're just going to send everyone to your homepage, forget it. If you're just kind of trying to build a generic audience and you have no end in mind for it, don't do it. And just don't try to use it for the early stage customer. So switching to pay per impression. Biggest thing to know about it is, first of all, most of it is banners, and I am not a fan. I have never liked them. I'm also completely wrong. I am biased against them strongly because most of the clients I have tried to use them for are smaller businesses where if they plunk down $40,000, $50,000, if it doesn't go swimmingly, that's their entire year's budget just blown. Banners can look like this, right? There are things that appear on a website. You've seen them all, in the middle of the page, at the top of the page. You can also have other CPM formats. So rich media advertising, ads inside your games. You can actually purchase in-game advertising based on the impression. You can buy banners inside email newsletters, which can be very, very effective. And you can also use some of the tools out there that do what's called programmatic buying or real-time bidding. So They basically will take sort of leftover inventory on sites a lot of the time, and they'll funnel your money to the places that appear to work the best. Don't put too much faith in just spending the money and taking your hands off the wheel, but these are pretty cool networks. They do cost a lot of money. So where can you go? Well, the first thing I think of is newsletters and niche sites. Newsletters and niche sites are good places to get more affordable CPM-based advertising. So for example, go type in list of Blot magazines, whatever you're looking for, just a list of those magazines. You find the publishers, and then you can go to them and you can contact them and say, hey, can I see your rate card? Or most of them, if you just click on advertising, you'll get a rate card right then and there. You can hit the major networks like DoubleClick and Tribal and others, but they're going to be very, very expensive. They're going to have minimum spend levels. If you hit a major publisher, they also are going to be very, very expensive. So if you go to Condé Nast, for example, that's really, really pricey. On the other hand, if you have someone who's selling truck parts or high-end car parts, that can be a lot cheaper than you think, because there's a lot of niche magazines that talk about them. If you can find a Ferrari muffler magazine, chances are that's going to be pretty affordable. So what's good? Well, you can buy up space in a single publisher. That's kind of cool, right? You can go to a publisher and just say, I want to show up in every publication you have about racing tires, whatever. Email banners are the best deal I have ever seen in CPM advertising. We've gotten better results with banners inside of emails than anything else we've ever bought. If you're going to do basic brand expansion, CPM isn't bad. I actually like social media better. It tends to have a lot more lift, but if you combine the two, it's really pretty powerful. And you can use it for brand reinforcement. And I'll talk about this in a minute, because there's retargeting things you can do with these kinds of networks. And sometimes it's the only way to get access to your audience. Last thing is, if you have some extra budget left, this is a great way to burn through it in a hurry. You just want to make sure you spend your whole budget for the month or the year. Great. The bad, well, again, you can just light money on fire. Feed it into the shredder, it's gone. It can go away even faster than PPC, because they're all going to require like a big upfront payment. The other thing that I've encountered on every major paid CPM network is they'll come to you first and they'll say, hey, our advertisers get fantastic returns. The click-through is 1% and blah, blah, blah. Then you put up your ad and it starts running and you're getting like a 0.03% click-through and 0 conversions. And they'll say, oh my God, I've never seen anyone get such bad results. It must be your banner. Now, unless Portent and 2 other agencies I've talked to consistently produce the worst banners on every ad network they ever go to buy to, this is bullshit, okay? And if you want to see people, the most full of crap people in our industry, I'm sorry, go find the people who are selling CPM advertising. It's totally mean, totally cruel, totally nasty. It's Ian being Ian, but it's true. It's the closest thing to a used car salesman I will ever see, because they're just hawking impressions. And if you want another way to find out, go buy an ad campaign and say you're going to buy 1 million impressions, and notice that your campaign's supposed to start on day X, right? Let's just say day 0, and you only get a few impressions, right? Day 1, day 2, day 3. It's supposed to be a 10-day campaign, and all of a sudden on day 9, you get 900,000 impressions. I call that the Impression Belch. And what's going on there is the advertiser, the publisher, has forgotten to provide you the number of impressions you're supposed to get. This happens all the time. You have to keep an eye on what's happening, because if they pump them all out that fast, you're losing a lot of results, because they're going to have them going, the impressions coming up at 1 a.m., they're going to have them coming up, weird days of the week, whatever, and they're just going to crank them all out in a day. So best practice, if you're going to do it, first of all, negotiate. On any major network, you can negotiate. And often what I'll do is I'll say, okay, we're going to buy this, we're going to make this ad buy on your network. It's going to cost $90,000. But as part of that, I want to get 250,000 impressions on your email, in your email newsletter. And if they say no, you say, okay, thanks, and you walk away. Because if it's that big a network wanting that big a buy, chances are lots of other places to go. Plus, you can always go back. Get your own data. Do not trust the ad network to tell you how many clicks you're getting, ever. Because I have never seen an ad network that shows the same number of clicks that I show. They always show 3, 4, 5 times the number of clicks. Seriously, they're off by that much. And then they'll say, of course, it must be your analytics software.
Where would you go to get that from?
The click-through data? Where would you go to get click-through data? I look at my analytics. I want to see how many clicks I'm getting from that publishing network. The publisher should be able to give you a list of all the referring URLs, all the URLs that all the pages on which that ad banner may live, or all the domains, and then you should be able to, in Google Analytics, just say, show me all the clicks from this domain, and it should tell you right away. They'll also let you custom tag the URL, so you can put something on it, like, campaign equals whatever, and then you can just filter for that in Google Analytics. Do not let them do the impression belch. If they miss impressions for a long time, do not let them spit them all out in one day. Say, okay, I want you to push this campaign forward another X days. Or if it was a limited time campaign, you say, you know what? You got to give us you got to give us some money back, or you got to give us more impressions later, because this was a limited time campaign. We had a certain pacing we needed, and you blew it. You have to really drive a hard bargain, and then target the heck out of them. If you can keep those 4 things, you've become an expert media buyer. No, that's not really true, but you've become, a fairly experienced person dealing with buying CPM. So when do you use it? Well, you can use it to build brand perception. You can use it to just acquire eyeballs. It does happen. If you want to serve some unique format, often CPM is your only option. If you want placement in a newsletter, it's often your only option. If you want a really big media hit, if you want to show up on CNN and a whole bunch of other sites, this is one great way to do it. Or if you need one right now. And I'm talking about a media hit, not just buying pay-per-click. I'm talking about showing up in front of people who consume major media sources like Wall Street Journal online. That's where you would buy this kind of advertising. Generally, I'm looking for these 3 phases for CPM: awareness, consideration, and intent. It actually gets pretty weak, in my opinion, around the intent phase. I don't see too many companies closing purchases based on CPM. They may close micro conversions, but they're not going to close the macro conversions. Do not use impression-based ads for conversion-based campaigns. All right, conversion-based, just don't do it. I have never seen a good outcome when someone says, I will get you X conversions based on this banner campaign. There is no way to do it, because people look at those ads, they may notice them, and if you're lucky enough that they notice them, they're going to click on them. They're probably going to take a 3-second look at whatever page they land on, and then they're gone. Because the thing about banners is it's in some ways, a really great banner will attract people's attention because of the content of the banner itself, which means you have less of a guarantee that when they click through, they're going to do what you want them to do, as weird as that sounds. A lot of people look puzzled, but what I've seen in testing is if you have some really elaborate banner, like Apple will have these great banners and all this great stuff's happening, people click on the banner simply because it entertained them, not because they're looking at purchasing right then and there. If you got a limited budget, do not touch CPM. And by limited, I mean if a client does not seriously have $90,000 to assign to a single CPM campaign, I would steer them away from it. Because you can spend $80,000 in a month or 2 very wisely on PPC and paid social and get great results, better results than you're going to get by spending that much on CPM. If you don't have fantastic creative, do not touch CPM. There's nothing worse than spending a bunch of money on impressions when your banner ad sucks, because you pay for the impressions, you get no clicks, and you're done. Don't use them for popovers or pop unders, please, because that is like Satan's workshop. I hate them, and it's not good for any brand. I'm sorry, it's just not. Sometimes the interstitials that come up on sites like Forbes, yeah, okay, I see those, but the tacky popovers that show up when you try to leave a website, no, please don't. And don't try to get people at the intent and conversion phase. This is kind of my favorite. It has been for a few years, just because it's just so not used right. So paid social, and I'm going to use Facebook a lot as an example, but any social network you can think of has some form of paid promotion. Even Google Plus has started piloting paid advertising, so have Instagram, Pinterest, and Vine. So you want to start thinking about this. But on Facebook, you get these right rail ads, which are generally kind of losers, although they work better now because targeting is better. You get sponsored posts where you pay to have a post show up in certain locations. On Twitter, you can actually sponsor yourself as someone to follow. I think I've gotten 26 new followers because of this in the last 2 years. Somebody stop me. And you can also sponsor hashtags. And that's kind of interesting because I've seen that actually be pretty effective. And you can sponsor posts. And I've also seen that work pretty well on Twitter. The reason you might sponsor a post is because you want it to show up more than once in someone's Twitter feed, which is generally flying by so fast. LinkedIn is a totally neglected paid network because it's expensive. And yeah, you're paying $4 a click, but think about it. If you're doing something B2B and every one of those clicks is coming from LinkedIn, that's probably worth it. It's probably worth it because it's so well targeted. And like I said, these other networks are piloting different advertising systems. Instagram generated so much hatred when they first ran ads that they have pulled them back down and are testing other ways to do it. I don't know what they'll do about that. They got to make money somehow. So it takes a small budget and the potential is ridiculous. If you want to get on Twitter, you're mostly targeting kind of nerdy, younger audience, marketers, and reporters. Reporters is a huge deal, right? Because you can get your content in front of people who will retransmit it a lot. Twitter is not a bulk play. You don't necessarily want to get 20,000 clicks or follows with a sponsored post or something on Twitter. You want to get that one perfect like or that one perfect follow. Facebook is great for audience building and content awareness as well as affinity marketing. So if you want to sell beer and everybody who likes NASCAR drinks beer, you can buy ads for everyone who has said they like NASCAR. And your ads will show up for everyone who drinks beer. You can get even more, but you can get even more obscure. So you can find, everyone in Brazil who likes to watch soccer and sell them aspirin or whatever. Sorry? Tissues, yes, tissues. There's lots of ways you can target stuff that's very unique and things that no one else has tried, so you can save yourself a lot of money and get great targeting. Facebook pretty much targets everyone. Okay, forget the over 30. Everyone on earth uses Facebook in some way if they have a computer and an internet connection. I think I know 2 people maybe who are not on Facebook.
A 14-year-old crowd isn't.
No, that's right. And that is one thing is that, pre-adults, tweens and teens, don't use Facebook that much. They actually, all the ones that I know, are just on SMS. They're not using anything. Or Snapchat. You see, if I see that on my kids' phones, I erase it. So I just don't like it. But I don't know where they're going to end up. I don't know if they'll end up on Facebook or another network. There seems to be more younger people using Twitter, but still not exactly huge numbers. With Facebook Messenger coming out, and it seems to work pretty well. And in some ways it's better than SMS because it lets you share a little bit more. That might be something that catches on, but I don't know. Facebook just bought a huge chat tool called they're all over the place, and they've got a pretty young audience, so that may be what they're trying to do. I don't know. You know what? My kids laugh at me for using Instagram.
Really?
Yeah. No. They just laugh. But yeah, they consider it an old person's tool, which I find kind of funny. They actually said that to my face, but anyway. LinkedIn is great for targeting people in very specific jobs and industries. For Portent, I'll occasionally promote something that targets CMOs and nobody but CMOs. Maybe I only get 5 clicks, but they're the 5 clicks I want. StumbleUpon is kind of interesting because you can target just about anyone. It is the lowest quality form of traffic you can get in the universe. And the reason you use StumbleUpon is because you're hoping one of those 25 million stumbles that you get is that one person you want. And I have seen that work a couple times. The first time I ever had a piece of content really blow up years and years ago was because of StumbleUpon. Because 5 people on StumbleUpon who were very influential thumbed it up on StumbleUpon, but then they also put it on sites like Dig. And that really helped it move up. Now, of course, I'm talking about Dig, which is basically gone at this point, but there's other places it can. So what's good about it? Well, it's a very powerful micro-conversion driver. If you want to get people to come to a specific page and read a specific article on your site, this is the way to do it. I've yet to see any industry where every company is using it well. I've yet to see any industry where any company is using it well. So it's a very easy place to go and get a competitive advantage. It's more targetable than just about any other medium I can think of. And it tends to be dirt cheap. It tends to be pretty inexpensive. There is a lot of bad, and there's significant downsides. So first of all, it will not generate a business-focused KPI. If you're trying to say, our social media, our paid social campaign is going to get you more sales, you're making a big mistake. Don't do it. And the main reason isn't because it won't work, it's because you're not going to be able to measure it. It's almost impossible to measure, because generally, if you'd run a successful paid social campaign, you've got people coming and liking your page so that they're more open to offers you give them later, or they're coming to your site and liking and reading an article or watching a video that introduces them to your brand, whatever. You can really get yourself into trouble because these are very new tools and new networks. There are very few controls on them. There's not a good body of knowledge out there, so you got to be really, really careful about how you use them. Some best practices: I prefer not to use CPM on these networks. It can get pretty out of control in a hurry. Facebook will do their optimized thing, and it's a thing. I wouldn't do it. And again, networks like Facebook, they don't know yet how to do this stuff right. So they will often serve up your ad in all sorts of really strange places, and you can spend a lot of money. So I go with either cost per click or cost per acquisition, cost per sale. Again, never, ever set ROI as an expected measure of performance. I mean it, no really. Do not go to a client and say, I'm going to get you direct ROI. People are going to click on this thing on Facebook and they're going to buy from you. Don't do it. The only exception I can think of is if they have a Facebook app. And even then, if it costs 99 cents, people aren't going to buy it because no one will pay 99 cents for an app, especially on Facebook. Keep your spending under control. Set a start and end date. Even if the client doesn't have a start and end date, set it. That way it just shuts down at some point. You got to go look at the data. Don't worry. Facebook will email you. Twitter will email you when you hit your end date. Set a max per day so you don't burn through your budget all at once. Don't click the optimize button. Use it when you want to test an audience, test an affinity. Like I've thought of using it to test television advertising. So run an affinity-based ad and see how it works. And if it does, that's one more vote for running a particular ad on TV or on the radio or whatever, targeting that audience. Use it to drive content discovery. It is fantastic for that, okay? Because you can, if you produce a great piece of content, and we've done that here, you can sponsor a post about it on Facebook, sponsor a post about it on LinkedIn, whatever, and get a lot of attention. Use it if you want to access the weird, right? If you want to access that one tiny group of people that just has some very unique trait about them. Come on, you've all seen that slide before, I think. No? Really? Man. Do not use it to drive better performance around key performance indicators. Do not use it without a plan. Just going in and buying willy-nilly. And I am the most guilty of this. I'll be like, hey, I just posted something. And I'll say this to Sarah, whatever. I'm just going to go spend $25 on this campaign. That okay? And she'll say, yeah, sure, because really, no, Ian, don't do it. Which she started saying, which is good. But and I'll spend the $25 and it's gone like that, and it gets me nothing, basically. Do not use any form of paid advertising on social voting sites unless you like getting abused. Okay, if you go on Reddit and you advertise a product, it had better be the coolest damn thing ever. Otherwise, the comments you're going to get are so horrendous. I mean, you will want to crawl under your desk. Don't put a huge budget behind it unless you've already tested. If you have, by all means, spend a ton of money. Because, again, you can get a lot of results out of it. And again, if you promise direct ROI, don't use it. Okay, I'll just keep saying that. Some other options in the paid space, you can do retargeting. And in fact, retargeting coupled with any of these other things can be very powerful. So, for example, if you buy if you sponsor a post on Facebook about a new article you just wrote, and then you place a retargeting pixel on people's computers if they visit that article, then from then on, your banners chase them around the internet, which means your CPM advertising or your CPC advertising is much more precise and works better. People say they hate retargeting. I'm sure they do in concept, and yet it is the best performing type of advertising on the web right now. Pay for performance, affiliate marketing, I really try to steer clients away from it. I would rather see them, usually it means getting on a big network like Commission Junction and then just having people come in and spam you. But that's exactly what they'll do. Most of them are totally unscrupulous. I have seen plenty of, affiliate experts who will place forms up on the web that are completely deceptive to get data from you that they can then submit to these services, even though the data may be meaningless, and get paid by the lead. Don't try to get them away from that. If they want to do it, look for premium affiliate networks. Try to set up your own. Try to do something where you have total control over it. There is no way in hell I'm going to finish this. I will keep trying, and maybe we'll just continue this next time.
Question on how are we doing on that? How many clients have we worked with? How successful have we been?
I don't know how many.
Sometimes I get some inquiries, paid social specific, and it's like, all right, how much do we pursue this?
Well, okay, so welcome to the agency world. You need to pursue it.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
pursue it.
If there was no one here who knew how to do it, we would still have to pursue it because you're always hiring and training behind the curve. There's no way around that. That's a very basic rule. But I can tell you, at least on the political side, we've been very, very successful with it. I don't know among other campaigns. Okay.
Lush explodes with social activity anytime I do an ad for them.
Okay.
We did Mother's Day stuff for them, and moms were tagging their sons and husbands in comments, telling them to go this way along for Mother's Day.
Yeah. So, sorry. The question was, how are we doing with paid social at Portent? And I'd said political stuff works really well. Kiko was just saying, Lush Cosmetics, we've had a lot of success with them around holidays.
To your point, though, those ads are almost impossible to measure the full value in a number, because on an ROI number, it's basically like they got back exactly what they paid.
Yeah.
But that social activity is worth more. It's just how do you put that on paper?
And the simplest calculus I use, and it's really oversimplified, but I'll look at clicks from, say, Facebook and the conversion rate and the value per conversion, and I'll say, okay, you have this many likes, this many fans, you got this many clicks, and then you just do the division from there and say, all right, this is what one fan is worth. That's terrible because it's missing a whole bunch of additional value, but at least gives you a rough idea. So, if you're spending 10 times that amount to get a fan, it's probably not working. One reason it's so successful in politics is because they're not necessarily worried about the cost per fan. They're worried about targeting. They want to make sure that they reach every single person in a particular county in a particular state. And it's worth, whatever they've got in their war chest. And even if we're spending $5 per person, that's 1/1000th of the cost of a television campaign during a major political campaign.
We're also seeing, Facebook's organic reach is very, very, very low for most brands right now based on Facebook algorithm changes. And we've consistently seen an expansion in organic reach on our advertised posts. Are we still seeing that? So it's kind of a way now that we are able to achieve some organic reach, even in the current Facebook algorithm situation.
Yeah, so that's another really important point is, Facebook and probably soon other networks are changing their algorithms so that straight up organic social does not get you as much as you might think. You need to do some paid social to boost organic, or just to make sure you show up in all the places you used to appear on Facebook. One thing Facebook has done is change their algorithm so that now if you put a post up on your company page, it won't necessarily show up for all of your followers. It won't show up in all their news feeds, unless you pay, of course, to boost the post.
That's been on average around 9%.
Shows been 9.
Yeah, very, very, very
Wow. So, okay, if you do a post, if you do an organic post on your company page, it shows up for 9%, not 90, but 9% of your followers. So yeah, paying might be a good idea.
And just one more comment about the organic reach going down. I've looked at for a couple of different clients, and the pattern I see is that organic reach is not only down, but desktop reach is down dramatically, which has been supplanted with mobile reach, where the conversion rates are a fraction of the desktop conversion
Really?
rates. Yeah.
Okay, so does that mean, so what Kiko just said is that desktop reach is going down, mobile reach is going up, but the conversion rate on mobile is very small. So what do you do because of that? How do you change your?
And so my pet idea is just what Sarah's talking about of doing that paid promotion, but doing a targeted paid promotion to only the users that convert well, so boosting your desktop traffic.
Okay.
Keeping your ads off of mobile necessarily.
Okay.
If you see the same thing that I see it for your account.
Okay, so last part, and I'm repeating all these answers so it'll be clear in the video, but so Kiko said, one way to approach it then is to sort of target the areas that work better. So if you know that desktop is falling but it's still high conversion, make sure your ads target desktop, even though it's a smaller audience. So I think I can take more questions if you want, but just as a note, I'm going to stop here at the end of paid, and I think the next training, instead of being 301, will be the rest of this of 201. Other questions?
The industry that people are looking in or for, would that make a difference as well? You're talking about desktop versus mobile, but it's like restaurants or something like that, or wouldn't that, they're going to be more mobile than a desktop? Or?
Industry, what people are searching for, the type of product or service they're searching for, can definitely have an impact. The industry they're in can have a bigger impact. Now, if you know that it's something mobile, then you should see a higher conversion rate from mobile. So if someone's looking for restaurants, you should see better performance from that. So I would still say keep the same principles in mind. But the industry they're in, so like if I'm a mechanic and I'm searching for really a new set of tools I need, I may have a completely different search behavior. I may still be on Facebook, but I may search completely differently, or I may read my feed in an entirely different way at a different time of day, and you want to look at things like that. Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll come back to this next week.